Welcome back to Darnley Cyber Café. I'm your host, Darnley. Grab your cup of coffee, settle in, and let's get into it, because today's episode is about something that honestly used to sound like a thriller plot or a Black Mirror episode, but in 2025 and into 2026, it has become a very real, very expensive operational threat for businesses of every size. Here's what we're starting. March 2025. A finance director at a multinational firm in Singapore joins a Zoom call with what appears to be her CFO and several other senior executives. They look right, they sound right, the CFO speaks, and the other executives nod and respond. It feels completely normal, except for the urgency of the ask, a wire transfer of $499,000 for what they describe as a confidential acquisition. She authorizes it. Now, none of those executives were real. Every face on that call was a deep fake. Every voice was AI generated. The entire meeting was fabricated using publicly available recordings and photos of the actual leadership team. That is the threat landscape we're operating in. And today I'm going to walk you through how we got here, how these attacks actually work, what the real incidents tell us, and more importantly, what you can do about it. Let me take you back to 2019. A UK energy company receives a phone call from what sounds exactly like their CEO. Accent, cadence, the whole thing. He's asking for an urgent wire transfer of 220,000 euros to a supplier. The employee complies. The CEO never made that call. That was the first major documented business case of voice clone fraud in the wild. It was proof of concept, a prototype. What happened since then is not incremental improvement, it is a qualitative leap. There are three shifts that have driven this explosion. First, video realism. Modern video generation models now produce content with a temporal consistency, coherent motion, stable identity, synchronized expression. The artifacts that used to give deep fakes away, such as natural eye movement, flickering around the jawline, warping during fast motion, weird or disappearing hairline, those have largely disappeared, particularly in a short form content. Second, and this is one I find most alarming from a practitioner standpoint, voice synthesis has crossed what researchers are calling the indistinguishable threshold. We're not talking about minutes of audio to build a profile anymore. 3 to 10 seconds of clean audio is sufficient to generate a voice clone with natural intonation, rhythm, pauses, even breathing patterns. 3 seconds. That's a conference intro clip. That's a Zoom recording. That's a LinkedIn video post. Maybe this is even Darnley speaking. Things to ponder about, eh? Third, the technical barrier is essentially gone. Now, we have what the industry is calling deepfake as a service, criminal platforms offering ready-to-use voice cloning, video generation, and persona simulation tools. No technical experience required. Just a script, a recording, and a target. And the numbers reflect this. Deepfake volumes grew from roughly 500,000 documented cases online in 2023 to an estimated 8 million by 2025. That's approaching a 900% annual growth. And according to researchers at Deep Strike, a deepfake attempt was occurring against a business every 5 minutes in 2024. Now let me walk you through the mechanics, because understanding the attack chain is the first step towards defending against it. Now for voice cloning, the attacker needs audio. That's the raw material, and they don't need much. 3 to 30 seconds of clean audio, free of background noise, free of multiple speakers, is enough to train a modern model. Higher quality clones capturing subtle vocal characteristics might need a bit more, but the floor is shockingly low. Where does that audio come from? everywhere your executives are in public: earning calls, conference presentations, podcast appearances, YouTube interviews, LinkedIn video posts, press releases with recorded statements. If your leadership team has a public voice presence, and most do, there is usable training material out there. Attackers know this, and they're harvesting it. For video deepfakes, the model needs to learn facial movements from different angles and under different lighting conditions. Conference recordings are ideal. So is any video content where the executive's face is clearly visible for an extended period. The AI learns to replicate the face, the expressions, the lip movements, and then it can be overlaid on any script the attacker wants to run. Now, here's what makes the Singapore case particularly instructive. The attackers didn't just clone one person, they actually cloned an entire leadership team and ran an interactive multi-person video conference. That is not a pre-recorded deepfake video. That is a real-time, multi-participant synthetic feeling. The complexity of that operation tells us these threat actors had resources, planning, and time, and they certainly were not amateur hour. And this is the part that keeps me up at night as someone who spent years in this field, especially one who does podcasts. These attacks don't exploit technical vulnerabilities. They exploit organizational psychology, urgency, authority, the reluctance to question someone who appears to be your CFO, the fear of slowing down a sensitive business transaction. Companies spend significant resources hardening their systems, their endpoints, and their email gateways, and attackers simply walk around all of it by impersonating the human beings inside. Finance teams are the primary target, and deliberately so. They have direct authority to move money. They handle urgent transactions regularly, and urgency is normalized in finance. The deal is closing today. The transfer needs to clear by end of day. Attackers don't create urgency, they exploit urgency cultures that already exist. Okay, so let's talk about the cases that matter and what these patterns tell us. You already know the 2019 UK energy firm case, the £220,000 voice only, no video. The technology at that point couldn't really sustain a real-time interactive video call. So the attacker used a phone, but it worked. The voice passed every mental credibility check the employee ran. In 2024, engineering firm Arup became one of the highest profile cases on record. A finance employee in Hong Kong was invited to a video call. The call appeared to include the CFO and other executives. The request was for a $25 million wire transfer across multiple transactions. The employee participated in what appeared to be a normal executive briefing. Every participant except them was AI generated. $25 million. And what made that case historic wasn't just the dollar amount. It was the proof that multi-participant deepfakes calls are now operationally viable. Before Arup, most security practitioners assumed deepfakes were limited to one-on-one scenarios, and that assumption died pretty hard in Hong Kong. Then in March 2025, Singapore again, $499,000. And here's a detail that I think is most important for your security posture. The attackers, knowing that deepfake awareness has grown since Arup, actually proactively suggested a video call to verify the request. They weaponized the verification step. The victim thought, I was going to ask for a video call, and they're the ones offering it, so it must be legitimate. That apparent willingness to verify created a false sense of security. Now, also in 2025, the CEO of a global advertising giant, WPP, was targeted. Someone had cloned his voice and used it on a fake Microsoft Teams style call. Now, it didn't succeed financially, but it demonstrates that even the most prominent executives with security-conscious organizations are being targeted. The common thread across every one of these cases: urgency, authority, and an artificial verification channel that the victim trusts. The playbook is consistent, and that consistency is actually useful because it means we can train against it. One more number I want to leave in this segment. Humans correctly identify high-quality deepfake videos only about 24.5% of the time. In another study, participants claimed 73% accuracy at identifying audio deepfakes, and they were frequently fooled. We are not equipped cognitively to detect this threat with our eyes and ears alone. Policy and process have to do what perception cannot. Okay, let's talk defenses, because this is where I want to be practical. I have sat across from organizations that have been through exactly these kinds of incidences, and I can tell you, the ones that recover fastest, and sometimes the ones that prevent it in the first place, have processes in their side. First, out-of-band verification is non-negotiable for financial requests. Pre-arranged code words or phrases that are not public knowledge. Callback procedures are known numbers, not numbers provided in the suspicious communication. Even something as simple as a team-agreed safe word for urgent wire requests. Now, I understand this sounds old-fashioned, but believe me, it works. Second, a multi-step approval for wire transfers, full stop. Regardless of how convincing the voice sounds, regardless of how legitimate the video looks, the Singapore attackers adapted specifically because they knew people had heard about deepfakes and might push back. Your controls need to assume that even verification steps can be faked. The answer is, as always, layering. Multiple people, multiple channels, documented authorization. And third, train your people on deepfake scenarios specifically. Generic phishing training isn't going to help a finance director who gets a Teams call from someone who looks and sounds exactly like the CFO. Run tabletop exercises to include the scenario. Walk through what the red flags are: unexpected urgency, unusual payment designations, pressure to keep transactions confidential, proactive offers of verification from the requester. Fourth, think clearly about your executive's public audio and video footprint. Now, I'm not suggesting your leadership go dark. I understand that's not realistic, but it has its own costs. Be intentional. Know what training material exists and factor that into your threat model. Fifth, AI detection tools. They do exist, and they're improving, and they're worth evaluating for your company, but do not make them the primary end-all be-all control. Detection tools are currently losing the arms race to generation tools. They are a useful additional signal, but not a safety net that you can trust 100%. Sixth, and this is the longer arc, watch the content provenance space. The Coalition of Content Provenance and Authority, C2PA, is developing cryptographic signaling standards for media. When this matures and is adopted at platform scale, the shift will burden the proof onto synthetic content. I understand we're not there yet, but it's coming and it will matter. Here's the frame I leave with every executive and every security team. CEO fraud via deepfake is now targeting at least 400 companies per day. The question is not whether your executives will be impersonated, it's whether your organization has the procedures in place that make impersonation fail before anyone moves money. So let's wrap this all up. Takeaway 1. Voice synthesis has crossed the indistinguishable threshold. A few seconds of audio is all an attacker needs. The audio your executives produce publicly is that training data. Takeaway 2. Multi-participant deepfake videos calls are operational and are not theoretical. Arup proved it. Singapore confirmed it. Your finance team needs to know this is a real scenario they could face. And takeaway 3, attackers are adapting to your awareness. Proactively offering verification is now part of the playbook. Your controls have to go deeper than a video call confirmation. And takeaway 4, process beats perception. Your people cannot reliably detect high-quality deepfakes with their eyes and ears. Policy, multi-step approval, and out-of-band verification are your actual defenses. Take it from me, the threat is real and it's growing and it's becoming more sophisticated. But so are the people defending against it, and that includes you. Thank you so much for stopping by the Café. If you enjoy this content, stop by again next week or listen to some of our older podcast episodes to stay informed. As always, stay sharp, stay skeptical, and remember, knowledge is power. I'll catch you next time at the Café.